Splice correct.
Hello, viewers. Welcome to another episode of the Nanaya Yabua podcast. And yes, it's me, Nanaya Yabua, with Chioma Janelle. I'm in the studio with Chioma. She is the founder of Inner Compass Wellbeing, and where technology is leveraged to mental health and wellness. So, technology and mental wellness, bridging that gap. She is also a psychotherapist and works at Sankofa Psychotherapy and Consultant Group. So, when it comes to mental wellness, Black women's mental health, mental fitness, mental wellness, she knows more than I do. So she's going to break it down for us. Many of us have a little bit of issues. That is an understatement. And many times we do not recognize or acknowledge it to take care of ourselves. But since the advent of the COVID-19, we know that health is a big issue in the bigger population. But Black women as a subgroup have gotten the brunt of it. So, Chioma is going to walk us through. Chioma, before we get into all the heavy stuff, who are you?
That is a great question. So, one of the things that I always like to say is I am really fun and a loving person, right? Just off the top of it. And one of the things is I am definitely passionate about mental health. I've had my own experiences and journeys within my own lived experience within my family that really made me recognize there was a gap in mental health. I've actually lost two cousins to suicide. Earlier on in my early 20s, I kind of suffered from a bit of depression. And I realized there was nobody in the space that looked like me that I could relate to. And it really made me say, okay, what is the gaps and how can I be a solution to one of that gap? In my early 20s, I was studying social work. So it kind of went hand in hand. And I really said, okay, how can I, leverage what I'm seeing in my community, what I'm seeing in my family to really make a difference? And my goal is really to be a game changer, somebody that makes an impact for our community when it comes to mental health. And this is why we are building a wellness app to really support the Black community, racialized communities, to have that culturally competent and relatable tools to support mental health. So that's a little bit about who I am. I'm also a mom of two. You got to mention the babies, but and a wife. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, there's a lot going on, most definitely. And just like a lot is going on with you, a lot is going on with us. And we need that balance as well. So you've been here throughout, you're born here or you immigrated here.
I was born here. I have immigrant parents. So my dad is Nigerian. My mom is of Jamaican descent. So her parents migrated here from Jamaica. So I get best of both worlds. So the Nigerian flavor and the Jamaican flavor. So you can only imagine how great food tastes in our house. But yeah, I was born here.
That's good. And how did these two beautiful backgrounds inform your upbringing as, an individual? The reason why I ask these questions is because we don't just chance to be.
Mm.
We are situated within a family unit, a family complex, and many of these family dynamics or experiences also informs who Janelle is.
So, I actually appreciate you asking that question because, throughout my growing up, people have always asked me, like, okay, so are you more Jamaican? Are you more Nigerian? And I really say, like, I'm both. Because I had such an enriched experience of growing up in the Nigerian culture. Growing up, because my grandparents are West Indian, they would take me to Jamaica like for summers. My dad was also really intentional of making sure, like, you know your culture, you know your heritage, you know where you come from. So I did trips back and forth to both places. And I think what I did see is there's more similarities than differences when it
Oh
comes
yeah.
to Jamaican and Nigerian culture. So I think fundamentally when it comes to like family values, and making sure you have goals, and making sure you're succeeding, and making sure that you are motivated and always doing the right thing. I think there was lots of commonalities in one of those things. But what I did find is there was those silent undertones for when things were not going well, right? Like when you might have been struggling with, again, your mental health, or you might be, not living up to those standard quotas of your family. Then, I think it kind of pushed and challenged some cultural norms on that side, on both sides of the fence,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I think about the Jamaican culture and dynamic of my family, is if somebody has been struggling with their mental health, that they were seen as crazy. Like, what's wrong with them, right? And it's not until I really became a therapist and really started learning more about mental health where I was like, no, these are these are significant challenges, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is what this is. um, and even within like my that like we don't talk about mental health. We don't they like
Mm-hmm.
it's not a conversation, it's not a topic, it's something that unless you're doing good, everything else is by the wayside, right? So I think that's how that shaped my understanding of what mental health was, or when you were struggling, it was really like an isolated experience,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think it really fueled some of that stigma from even me growing up. So like I didn't know when I was struggling who to reach out to, or where there was comfort in saying, okay, no, I'm actually really struggling with this. Because again, I'm also the firstborn, right? So like there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of pressure that comes with being the firstborn. There's a high expectation of you have to set the standard for the ones under you, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when I'm saying I'm the firstborn, I'm not just the firstborn for my parents, but also in the cousin groups. So if you think about, like, I got double firstborn, right? So my mom's side, I was the first grandkid. My dad's side, I was the first grandkid, and I'm the firstborn. So there is this like heavy expectation of you need to be a doctor, you need to be an engineer, you need to be something great. You like there's no room for failure. There's no room for anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you're struggling, we don't want to hear it. Push through it, right?
Yes.
Or, oh my gosh, you're crazy. What's wrong with you?
Yes.
And even that slowing down of recognition. I think now that people are talking about it more, they're starting to be like, okay, maybe there are supports that are needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even how I seen my family, navigate mental health. Again, I've seen mental health on both sides. I've seen mental health on my dad's side of the family, on my mom's side of the family, and for some of my cousins, when they were experiencing mental health, everyone was like, "Whoa, that person's too crazy. They're too extreme." Again, one of my cousins who had schizophrenia, right? It was a lot. It was a lot. It was, maybe we need to just pray about it, right? Maybe this is something we need to take to prayer. And it really made me say, okay, what more needs to be done? This can't be the solution, because not to say it doesn't help, but like I didn't see any great change with that, or I didn't see any impact. What I did see is like more isolation. What I did see is more stigma. What I did see is like a lack of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's how I really experienced mental health kind of growing up, like early teens, 20, like late teens, early 20s, just kind of seeing what that was playing out like in my family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah.
Wow. It's like all the topics that we're going to really dig into, you have touched on it. And stigma is one of the biggest things that when you look at the research on Black women or Black people accessing mental health, one of the biggest things that we see is stigma. Because of stigma, people don't want to be seen as. But before we delve into it, could you give us a breakdown of, for the layperson, what stigma means? And then, yeah, you take it.
So yeah, so when we look at stigma within mental health, it's those negative biases or approaches that we see, or that are very common. It's really saying that, okay, maybe this isn't something that relates to us, or maybe this is something that we connect to. And really, that's what stigma is when we're looking at mental health in the Black community. It's really that negative perception of a thing, and in this case, mental health,
Mm-hmm.
that really creates a gap. It creates a barrier for possibilities of access to help or resources, or how we want to connect in or get support.
Yeah. And just to top up with what you're saying, and also the stigmatization that prevents some people from accessing is also that strong black woman complex.
Mm,
Like you're strong, you got to be able to do it, and all those things. Girl, it doesn't help. It, I do believe at a certain point it had its place in time in history. Earlier on, we didn't have a choice. As I love myself some 50 cents. He said depression it is a luxury.
mm,
For him, depression is a luxury. He doesn't have time to sit and get depressed. But that's a different mindset. S- But the earlier ons didn't have the opportunity or the time to, because if it's periods of being enslaved, as the black woman, you are doing everything. And even when you break down, you don't even know you are breaking down. And that is the problem. But over generations, we've carried on this load till this point, and it is not helping us in any way, shape, or form. Let me tell you a story. When I came to this country and I was in university, my first year in university, I had a Caribbean friend, and we were having a discussion, and she said, "Oh, Bernadette, you're so crazy." So you're telling somebody who has newly immigrated from an African country where the word crazy has a different concept than the word crazy here.
mhm,
I went ballistic. Because she said she was just joking. It's nothing to be upset about. But it was a whole lot of, to me, it was an insult. You mad, you crazy. It was a whole insult because the perception of a crazy person is really mentally deranged.
mhm,
But the crazy is you are ridiculous or
mhm.
something like that. So, um, how does Inner Compass? Let's get to Inner Compass. What you do best. How does Inner Compass helps us resolve some of these issues?
So one of the things that we're working on is we're looking at intentionally building guided meditation and mindfulness exercises that
Mm-hmm.
are culturally relatable. So when we're looking at that, we're looking at language, we're looking at different like representations of who's delivering the messages, of what are the things that we can connect to and is meaningful for us. So to that point, you know how you said we have different connotations of different mental health or meanings of words. So, what are the things that resonate with Black and racialized people? So, some of the intentionalities that this app is having is making sure that one, it's by therapists that are racialized, so they have that knowledge and understanding of what we need as a community.
Okay.
Another aspect of that is really by is there music in the background? So, you know, we have reggae jazz that we're working on to incorporate as like calming, soothing sounds. And it's really the things that I know from the therapist that I'm working with know that is going to resonate with our lived experiences, our understanding of wellness. And one of the things that I always say when it comes to mental health is that mental health in Western society is really looked at from a symptomology perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
we're really looking at the symptoms of like anxiety, depression. But when it comes to mental health in Black communities, it's often the opposite. We're not actually looking at it from symptomology. We're looking at it from wellness. We're looking at it from, okay, how do we get to our goals? Or like, how do we need to be motivated? Or, you know, maybe there's a lack of something. How are we problem solving? Or what is that self-care? So we really flipped it on its head of not really looking at it from that symptomology perspective, but saying what does it look like for wellness, in essence supporting mental health, right? And really redefining what mental health looks like for Black and racialized communities is the fact that it needs to be grounded on wellness and saying what are protective factors that need to be considered when we're trying to protect our mental health, protect, some of those traumas from we might have carried from one generation to the next, right? How are we trying to really position ourselves well to succeed?
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So you said you were a psychotherapist. What we needed to qualify in the beginning is who is a psychotherapist, what a psychotherapist does. It totally skipped me. So we need to get back to that part. What does a psychotherapist do?
Absolutely. So, a psychotherapist is basically a licensed mental health professional. So, just to qualify, I'm a registered social worker, psychotherapist.
Mhm.
Um, and what that means is one, we've gone through lots of education to learn about mental health, but just as a forefront to really say, okay, how do we support the different needs? A therapist is somebody that would be grounded in mental health support and resourcing and helping somebody guide through, whatever challenges they're doing. As a psychotherapist, my approach is very much connecting that body to mind. Because what I find within our Black community is we live so much in the logic space, so much in our head, so much going on in our head, but sometimes we're so disconnected to our emotions and being able to bring ourselves back into that emotional state, because the reality is our emotions have so much information and they have so much things that they can tell us in terms of, are we living out our values? Are our needs being met? How do we get closer to some of those authentic things that we genuinely want? But sometimes when we're so consumed with being our logical minds and reasoning things out, we completely disconnect from that emotional state that again informs so much of our decisions. So we're almost, for my approach is very much attuning back to that emotion and allowing both, your mind, that logical state and that emotional state to really work hand in hand to inform some of the things that we want to achieve, that we want to build and develop. So that's what I do as a psychotherapist, and defines a little bit about what psychotherapy is.
So people, wherever you watching, if you hear psycho and a therapist, does not mean the therapist is psycho, but it felt nice. It felt like, maybe one day I'll do stand-up comedy, but
I love
yes. And it's beautiful when I'm on LinkedIn to see that many black people are beginning to become more aware. I always say that my generation is slightly different in when when some of us came here, the expectations or the path we chose. But the beauty that I see, and I think I tuned into one of your Instagram conversations. I was right at work, eh? Even though I was working, I was listening to you girls. I had this baby bothering me and whatnot. So I was feeding somebody's baby and still listening to you. So you never know what is behind it. But yeah, that was what was going on with me. And I loved, even though I didn't get the full conversations, I loved the beauty of the sister circle that I saw there, the sharing that I also saw there. So that community, that was so beautiful. That was so beautiful. So when it comes to people accessing psychotherapy, normally at what stage do they get to you or do they come to you? Just
Let me
joking.
restate. That's a great question, because oftentimes what I see in my community is when people reach out, they're reaching out when they're in crisis, right? Not
Mm,
when like things were bothering them or when, things were a little bit manageable. And when you're in crisis, my work is more to stabilize so you're not in crisis so we can actually begin the work, right?
hmm.
And I see that so common, and especially when we start to deal with like mood disorders and personality disorders like
Yes,
schizophrenia, personality disorder, borderline personality,
yes.
bipolar, I will get families that will reach out to say, my kid is an adult, they're really struggling, can you come and help? And this is when, police have been called, when like again, they're
Hmm.
already in the state of dysregulation, they don't even want help themselves. And I'm like, man, if only you reached out sooner. Because oftentimes when you're in crisis, especially for members who are calling for their family,
Mm-hmm.
there's not really much, like, the reality is there's not much that you can do at that point if that person doesn't want help,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's the qualifier, is that person needs to want to have help and support. Although the family can support in getting the person there with a therapist, and that's one of the things that I see is very common. So what my recommendation is, for anyone who's looking for therapy, don't wait until there's a crisis, or don't wait until things get extreme. When you start to notice things that are like a little bit off, maybe it's starting to have that conversation to say, maybe you need to talk to somebody. Maybe you need to work through something. Maybe there are underlying triggers that, or patterns that we haven't seen yet, that let's talk to someone and get that support, right? Not when there's a crisis. And it's not to say that I can't support a crisis. It just means there's going to be a longer journey, and there might not be that, often I find with the Black community, they want to see a quick fix. They want to see it now. They want to see it and, like, okay, cool, we talked to everybody, it's done, but not in crisis, because the
No.
first goal is, again, that stabilization. And that's like the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And I think with the literature, what I have been going through, and it is that normally between 3 to 5 years is when people hit their crisis. That means from year one to year 3 or 4, it's always brewing underneath. It's brewing underneath. So you have years of the thing brewing, brewing, brewing. And I don't know. No. So that means we need to do a lot of work having these conversations
Mm,
in the community, creating that awareness. Because even you and I having this conversation right now, somebody is out there not feeling too good, but refusing to doing their fasting and their prayers, but it ain't working. They need Janelle. They need Chioma. They need to have their inner compass, fixed. So I think we have a bigger job right now to create more awareness within our Black communities and racialized or people of color POC communities. Go ahead.
you're right. And it's funny that you say that too, like in terms of the length of time that people usually wait till they get to support. Again, I was one of those. Like when I said in my early 20s, when I was going through like a depressive episode, it took me about a year before I actually reached out to help. And my biggest reasons for reaching out to help was because I had my daughter, and I was like, okay, I need to clearly get help for her to be able to function as a mom. Like that was my motivation. And
Mm-hmm.
I think more than that, what I think some of the challenges are is, one, there's a study by Ontario Health Commissions that said about 70% of Black people would go to therapy if they could find a therapist that looks like them,
That
right?
is true.
And
That
I
is very true. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a change now when you start to see more Black mental health professionals,
Mm-hmm.
and where people can feel secure and feel supported and feel like they can relate. Because even with my experience, my initial experience going to therapy was with a white woman, and she couldn't relate to my needs as a Black woman, and I felt further stigmatized. I felt like, they're right, therapy wasn't for me because, like, this isn't working. And I only went to one session, right?
Yeah.
But that one session made me say, okay, this wasn't for me. Man, was I wrong? Because fast forward now as a therapist, I have my own therapist, and
Yes.
she's a Black woman. She is amazing, and
Mm-hmm.
we're working through things, or I've worked through things with her, where
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I needed that, and I didn't even realize.
You know
And
what?
oh, sorry.
Sorry. Whilst you're saying it, I had two therapists in the back in the past. The first one was a white woman. She looked at me. It's like, I think you have everything that you need to do. I don't think you need me. You have everything down pat. You'll be fine. You'll be good. So I left. And then the other therapist that I happened to see later on in life was an Indian guy who was talking, and I'm looking at him, and it's like I started actually therapy. It was like I'm in the wrong place. I'm in the wrong place. I knew I needed somebody to have some deep conversations with. And I know I have my ways of coping, but I needed that outlet for somebody who is trained to say, okay, why don't we do it this way and see how best you can come out of this? What else is digging deeper there that you can unearth? But one says you're okay, the next person says, how do you call it? You are actually teaching them what you think they should do, and then he ends up telling me that I think you should you should go into and do therapy. I think you'll be very good. It's like that's not why I came to change my profession. That's not what. So, but so that's why I began to really do a lot of research and everything into it for myself, for my grounding and unearthing and everything, and that is what has brought me to this this one with you.
No, I mean that's such. I love that you said that because what happens, and you touched upon that a little bit earlier, is especially as Black women, we bring that superhero approach to therapy. And I can't tell you how many Black women I've worked with where I was like, "Ooh, I see you're wearing your superhero cape. We gotta, like Erica Badu says, put those bags down, right?" And I think that's the thing when you can connect to someone who gets it and understands, they see right through it. They see like, okay, so right now you are wearing something. You're wearing your strength armor. Why?
Why?
Why are you wearing it at?
Why?
It's happening for you where you feel like you have to do that,
Yes.
and really, oftentimes it comes from a place of like, I don't know how safe I am with you, so I can't be vulnerable yet. And the power of having a Black therapist or the Black community is they see through things that maybe another culture isn't going to see, right? They'll call you on your bull right there and then and be like, okay, you know
So, so I've been lucky that one of my very good friends who is older than me is a life coach. So then when I get into a fix mentally and I need a breakthrough, I do that call. So yesterday we had a beautiful morning session call for about 30 to 40 minutes, and she told me exactly where she thinks I should put it and to get myself sorted out and some of the strategies to utilize, and then to check in with her again. And if I need to ball, girl, go ball. Wash up your face. You need to let it out. Don't keep it in. And so sometimes I need that reality check that it's okay. And I know I tell myself it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. But coming from there also helps me let go, let go. And because we talked about safe space, the black therapist, some black therapists create and give you that safe space to be vulnerable. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we tend to look for, the safe spaces, the understanding, and be seeing through us and cutting our BS to the
right?
almost
I know that's
non-existent.
what we need. That's what we need sometimes. That's what we need.
or or you start and your therapist will give you that look. It's like, okay, even that look itself is a language, even though it's not quote unquote professional. It is the language, the body language, and it's like, okay, I gotta get myself on track. Oh my goodness. So um now, if I'm not mistaken, you won the Nobelum. To
Oh,
Let's talk about that, your experience with Nobelum, because that is what I was actually looking at Nobelum, and that is what actually triggered me to come look for you, because I saw you there and I went looking for this person who is doing this app for wellness and for mental wellness, and I came across Chioma.
Okay, I just started my Nobellum journey. So as you know, a Nobellum is like an accelerator that is
Yes.
really working to get women, like Black entrepreneurs, into STEM. And I was really excited when I got accepted into their program, right? To one, really get that awareness out there, to really speak about, you know what, we can be doing more. There's ways to bridge the gap, the importance of how we can leverage technology. And I was so grateful to just be in the space with like powerful, amazing Black people who got it and understood it. And they're like, yes, this is needed. And I was honored to be like, okay, I'm clearly on the right track to something, right? Because I think oftentimes when people think about mental health, they don't actually think about it in terms of how we can leverage the different tools that's available, and technology being one of the best ways to say, okay, how can we reach people faster, or how can we reach people when they are in crisis, or before they get in crisis, or what is that entry point. And I think Nobellum and being in Nobellum is really going to make an impact to that outreach and really building that community and awareness of mental health, and how as Black people we can access it differently. And going back to the app, one of the beautiful things about using technology is now you can ask for help anonymously, right? You don't have to feel that pressure or that stigma or the barrier to say, okay, I don't really want to ask for help. This isn't something that we do within our community, is asking for help. Now you can go on it. I mean, our app's not launching until January 2024, so anybody can join our wait list to get access to that.
2025.
Oh, 2025. Yeah. Okay. Clearly, I'm stuck in 2023. Sorry, 2025. I keep messing that up.
Yeah.
So we're launching the end of January 2025.
Hmm.
And anybody can join the wait list. But I'm really hoping that through Nobellum, we can really get the word out and really say, hey guys, there's this tool, there's this resource that's going to support mental health for our community, designed by our community, designed by professionals who know and get it.
Yes. And I would love to support. And through Nobellum, I found you. So it's something, right? And you speak in the language I understand the most. So that is excellent. I think you've answered my other question. So at the end of it all, at the end of it all, because I see that you're doing this thing with the other sisters, or is it a network? Yeah, the other sisters. What is the intention behind that?
Okay. So are you talking about the live that we do every 2 weeks?
Yes, the
Okay.
live that you do every 2 weeks.
So the funny thing with that kind of got birthed out of we are in entrepreneur spaces, right? As someone who's building their private practice, who's building this app, there are those things of sometimes you need community. And my biggest saying, anybody who knows me, I says the power of Black people is our strength is community. So when we can tap into community, when we can tap into sisterhoods and brotherhoods, it really strengthens and motivates us and pushes us through. So that space is really for us to like rant and talk about entrepreneurships and the struggles. And if you notice, everyone has different skills. So Carol, she's a photographer. Tina's a makeup artist. Adwina, she's a serial entrepreneur. So she does beauty care. She does um, cooking. She does so many things. And then you have me, who's like a therapist, who's like, and we need to have boundaries when we're still talking about business, right? And these are the things that like I'm doing to like intentionally bring in mental health into these spaces, but also
Mm-hmm.
recognizing I'm still an entrepreneur at the end of it. And entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It does take a lot of, I would say, mental push, mental resilience. There's days where I'm just tired, and those girls, I know I can pick up my phone and a call to be like, I got a no today. I got this rejection, and it hurts and it sucks. And but they're my community. They're my safe space. They're the people that I can go to support. And I think our thing was, okay, we have a message here. We have something to share with the community, and we want to share this and model that importance of having sisterhood and being in entrepreneur spaces, having community and being Black. Really saying this is what support looks like. This is what building wellness looks like, right? It's really in those small solutions. So that's kind of where that is going. It was kind of birthed out of conversations on the back end, and we're like, you know what, let's just do this live and see how people resonate it with. So we actually don't have a name yet for it. So we're still looking to develop a name, but we are hoping that every 2 weeks that we're going live on Instagram just to like share what our experiences of our with entrepreneurship, talk about real topics and struggles that we have, and ways that we're working through it, ways that we're finding support through it, and just how we're managing that entrepreneurship world and lens.
Mhm. It's beautiful to hear you talk about entrepreneurship and most especially Black women in entrepreneurship. I think sometimes what we did forget in transition is that when you look at parts of the developing world, many, many Black women are entrepreneurs. It's like you are born with an entrepreneurial gene, or you live in an entrepreneurial space. You breathe an entrepreneurial space in an entrepreneurial space. The beauty for me seeing this, which also is so encouraging, making me it's like it's showing me the purpose, the reason why I have these conversations. I created this platform for this podcast, that it's growing, it's beautiful, it's sexy, and it's blooming,
I love that. I love all of that.
and I'm on a high. So every time I see that, hear that, or read about it, I'm really excited that finally, say this generation is doing something that the other generation didn't get the opportunity to do, because your parents didn't get the opportunity to be as comfortable to do what you're doing now, because they needed to put food on the table, and that environment was vastly different from the environment that we are in. So they paid the heavy price for a lot of the racism and everything to build the foundations for you and, for instance, my children to come and enjoy. And for me, it is the most beautiful thing. It is the most beautiful thing to see, the most beautiful spaces to be. Most especially last year, I was at Be Future Black, whatever, found Black something something in technology, downtown Toronto, and it's like I find people who are speaking my language.
Yeah.
And it feels like a mini Atlanta push here, because the ATL is doing some major stuff. Our brothers and sisters there are pushing like crazy. And so that's the energy I feel here. And so that's why it's like I want to reach out to you all. For those who don't really think they're doing it or they cannot doing it, when you share your story like this with us, then we know there's a possibility. Now, that being said, you're an entrepreneur, Inner Compass Wellbeing. So let's discuss business. If you look on my LinkedIn thing, it says uplift. Yes, we are uplifting everybody, our people, male, female, and in between. We are uplifting everybody in life, business, and work. So let's talk about the business, the entrepreneurial side. What are some of the challenges and the successes that you've encountered? So, if challenges, how have you, what are the challenges, and then how have you tried or worked at, resolving them?
So, I think one of the biggest challenges is one, reaching out to my people about mental health and, getting that support. I think often not what I think, what I know is oftentimes when it comes to mental health, a lot of people are like kind of shut off, or there's a generation who's like, I don't need that support, or again, it's that stigma. And one of my approaches is constantly by talking about it, constantly by being in spaces to say, you know what? we don't have to look at it from the symptomology's point. We can just go back to connecting with the emotions. So that has been one of like the biggest challenges, and recognizing that there's so many different approaches to mental health that sometimes people can feel lost in the sauce of, okay, what's for me, what's not. And recognizing as a Black woman showing up in the spaces, I'm culturally trying to figure out, what does this mean for you. And when I look at it from a cultural standpoint, it's even your migration patterns. What does that look like for you? How does it impact you?
Yes.
From the system lenses of how have you interacted with institution, with education system, with hospital, how has that impacted you? You know, and then how are you doing as an individual? And trying to get that message out has been a lot harder than I thought it would. Right.
what,
Uh,
what do you think is what do you think is creating that difficulty? Is it the people that are receiving it that don't, because of the stigma we talked about, don't want to accept that it's a reality? Or
I think there's more than just the stigma of accepting the reality. I think there's like, one, the time commitment, the financial commitment, right? I think we don't know how to necessarily utilize some of our resources that we have, because nobody has shown us, or we've never really thought about exploring that. So I think there's some of those like just natural barriers. What I find is, again, that time commitment is, some people are working two jobs, some people are hustling to just survive. So it becomes a little bit harder. So this is why I'm always like, okay, let me at least give tidbits on my Instagram or my TikTok account to say at least you're getting small doses. Um, and one of the things that I'm really looking to push through some of those barriers is, again, with that app, right? Recognizing
mm-hmm,
that everybody is at different stages of their lives. Not everybody has the time or can afford to see a therapist, which is okay.
mm-hmm,
And then what are the other resources that can support it, where you're like, oh, yeah, you understand me. Oh, I resonate with this. Um, Even if it's something as simple as the music that I'm hearing on this app, I connect with and it's helping me calm, like, cool, I did enough. I'm okay with that. So I'm really trying to push through some of these barriers, really trying to like say, how far can I take this? And I'm really hoping that with this app, it's solving some of those like time commitment issues, those financial barriers, and really letting people explore the different opportunities when it comes to mental health, and the importance of, when you are feeling dysregulated, or you're recognizing there's a pattern or something coming up, can you access therapy, right? And making it very simple and easy. Easy. We're building in, here's a list of therapists, right? So you don't have to go too far. And I think some of the things too that I found with in my private practice is, it's hard. It's hard for anybody to ask for help and to say, okay, I actually need this help right now, or this support right now, right? So
it's everything that you've listed, from the double jobs to the time to the cost. The reason why you see me smile so much is that at one point in my life, I would have used all those as as excuses. I'm saying excuses because I'm coming from a different angle. Because if you do not situate yourself, how do you get the mental acumen to go in and work double? Mind, body, and soul. If you complaining of time, when you break down, you are going to it's going to cost you more than you maintaining yourself. So the time and the cost actually go together. So if I'm to pay you 100 and something every month, come in, check in with you, therapy, you give me my thing and I go work it out and come back and do therapy, check in. That means that I am maintaining my double job or triple job or whatever, because I'm getting resources and ways and means of coping and working through these resilience, creating resilience. It is also, if I dedicate 1 hour or 2 hours in a day to me by coming to see you, it's giving me a stretch of, say, a year or 2 years of not calling in sick for headache, for body pains and everything. And and guys, I have a session coming up September 14th that I'm teaching all these things. So if you listen to this, then you're getting tidbits of the somatic experiences of Black women, how we tend to express some of their mental health issues before they become full blown, and the cost. So if it becomes full blown, and unfortunately, having been worked in a mental health, a Center for Addiction and Mental Health, and seeing some Black people there, it becomes full blown. I'm sorry. If you cannot cope at home, you will cope somewhere else. And that somewhere else is not where you want to be. So this is where we come to Chioma. Chioma, this is the problem. Help me and let's work it out. Because if you're complaining about double jobs, time, and everything, the cost, the overall cost on your life is even more than.
I agree. I agree. There's something that you said earlier in terms of, not being able to afford the luxury of depression. And, on the back end, if you can't afford the luxury to take care of yourself if you're going through depression, is it shows up. Our body keeps score of a lot of the things that we're holding on to, or the lot of like the traumatic experiences.
Yes.
And the way how it shows up is in for especially for older women. So growing up, we would have some of these older generation women, like my grandmother's age, and would be like, no, she's crazy. Like she's like she's so angry or she's mad. But really it was like that manifesting of anxiety that was just building up that they've never really took time to care for and nurture and mend. And the reality is if we don't take care of ourselves, it shows up. Or, people who have rheumatoid arthritis, it will show up in flare ups and inflammation. One of a thought leader in this space is Gabor Mate. And he really
Yes.
talks about, how the body keeps score. And he did a study before he did his compassion inquiry course, is he looked at cancer patients and looked at, what kind of led to some of those symptomologies and the history before that. And a lot of them had some type of mental health issue that they didn't take care of, right? And I thought that was something that was so interesting to say. Our body will hold on to our stressors. Our body will hold
Yeah.
on to our trauma. It'll hold on to so many of these things. So to that point, if we don't take care of ourselves when we should, we're going to get hit really hard and be like,
Really hard.
yeah.
Really, really hard. Yes.
So
Really, really.
I'm glad that you're doing
Really.
the somatic experience,
Yes.
course in September. I think that's gonna be so interesting and helpful.
Because like you said, if you go to the need for culturally relevant care, is if you go to any other person, those you complain you have migraines and headaches, or you have back pain, body pains and everything, they are looking at something different. But if you come to me and you complain of so many headaches and whatnot, I'll ask you, girl, what's going on? Sit down, talk to me, break it down.
Mhm.
I'm a registered nurse, I'm not a psychotherapist, but my nursing is based on mental health. Any person, irrespective of the color, I go with your mind. What is going on upstairs? Because your upstairs will inform how I can cater my care to you. Because unfortunately, I cannot look at everyone and say, oh, this is Janelle, this is this person, the one size fits all. One size does not fit all, because each person comes with a story of experience or a narrative of experience. So I need to know your narrative of experience. So you got to break it down for me. And that's where we start delving into stuff. Years ago, I had one woman come into labor and delivery, having pre she was having contractions, but they're preterm contractions. I looked at her, I said, listen, 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 what's going on? that night was just therapy. They needed to unpack, and they needed a safe space and somebody that they could trust would not use their words against them. And after all these women started unpacking, and I call them, I'll give you good advice and bad advice. You can take both advice, whatever you want to do with it, you do with it. And they started laughing. So, laugh, even the laughter therapy said, I don't need to see a doctor. I should come see you every time. but this was a black woman who came in with preterm labor, and it had nothing. The doctor was, it's like, oh, no, no, no. We are not going to touch the baby. Baby is fine. It's mom. She's got issues. I'm going to talk to her. And that is how I prevented the further whatnot, because I knew she was coming. And girl, we got some drama. Let's talk about it. Right? So
I love that.
that's why I love what I do because we can talk about it all and have some good plans, bad plans, and be bad together, and then you can go. Yes.
Love.
Oh, Chioma, man, this is so beautiful. Thank you so much. What have I not talked about? So we've talked about our general mental health. We've talked about, oh, we didn't really specifically talk about Black immigrant women,
Mhm.
but we will leave it for the next time. We will specifically look at Black immigrant women's mental health,
Okay.
because that is a subsect that I realize is also coming up. So our psychotherapist has a job to do, and she will come back and she will break it down for us, educate us, so that any person who is Black, who has recently immigrated into the country, can learn from the psychotherapist. And sometimes I know you all say therapy is expensive. What is the minimum? What is the maximum per session?
So I do have a sliding scale. So the minimum is
Mhm.
$50 based on your income, and then the highest is 140. And there's actually ways that you can get free therapy. One of the ways is if you get a doctor referral, and
Mhm.
your therapist is a part of a health team. There's community health resources that I always look at. Where is somebody situated? I have recently just signed a contract with an agency in Newmarket. So if anybody is in the Newmarket region and looking for therapy, I can get them free therapy under Inner Compass. So
Mhm.
there's different ways that we look at being creative with offering support, because I do know financial need is a barrier. So I'm always looking at what does that look like. But in general, our sliding scale starts at $50 and our max goes up to 140.
Actually, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
That's not too bad, because if I can put $10, $10, $10 every week or whatnot, or even $10 every bi-weekly, and I'll say, okay, in 2 months I want to see Chioma. I can make that $50, and I go to Chioma. I really need help. This is it, and I have $80 or I have $100. Is it possible? And the answer is yes. At the end of the day, I always say it's how we plan. If you plan your health to be healthier, then it's going to be healthier. You find the ways and means of putting the money together towards, it's investing in your health. It's not my health. It's not Chioma's health. It's whoever that is watching, listening. It is your personal health. So you live in the GTA, you live outside the GTA, Waterloo. You are in Waterloo, right?
I'm in Kitchener.
Kitchener. Well, Kitchener, Waterloo, all around that place. When this app comes up, it doesn't matter which part of the universe you are, you can easily access therapy that is culturally relevant, that these beautiful souls have put together to help you live. I hope my sales pitch is fine.
I love it. I appreciate it. I was like, yes, yes, let's go. Love it.
And any last thoughts, words before we sign off?
Well, one thing that I have to say is thank you for bringing me into this space and sharing time and space with me. I appreciate it. I always take these things with joy. And I think it's also important just to give you your flowers and celebrate you, and what you're doing, I think, is amazing. So thank you for uplifting us and providing such a wealth of knowledge and resource. So thank you. Let me give you your flowers.
Thank you. I appreciate. So, guys, this has been navigating your inner compass. Sorry, navigating your inner compass with Chioma.
Thank
And
you.
we